Hey, 21 Accents fam. We have a very special conversation for you today. As you may know, June is Pride Month, so happy Pride.
Happy
And
Pride.
yeah, and right now it's gonna be me and Issa for a little while, which is pretty cool. We have some fun conversations that we want to have together to share with you all. And for this month, which is Pride Month, we would love to talk about our experience of pride and just how that kind of intersects with our different identities. So I'd love to turn it over to you, Issa, to kick it off. What has your experience of pride been? How does that show up for your identities in your life?
There's so much to talk about because there's so many different areas of it. Obviously, there's my queer pride, and that's something that I've been really lucky. I feel like I had a very um, just fortunate experience coming out. My friends were very, very accepting. I live in Los Angeles, so it's not really a problem over here. My family, for the most part, was very accepting. And obviously it had its like ups and downs, but I've come to really love that part about myself
Mm.
and feel like it's a really integral part of who I am. Like when I am introducing myself to someone, it usually comes out pretty quick in the conversation because it's part of who I am, and like it's part of my stories, like I'll be like talking about my day and it just comes out in the conversation. There's also my Mexican pride and my accent pride. I used to feel very self-conscious of my accent when I first came to the country. And then when I learned an American accent, I felt even more self-conscious because I felt like it had to be perfect all the time. And now I've gotten to the point where there's the accent I use for work, which is a very like general American trained accent. And then there's the accent I use for everyday life, which is not necessarily this one. This would be like my Mexican accent, but it's kind of a combination. And that is me and that is who I am. And it carries both my culture and my effort that I've made in this country. So I don't know. I'm proud of myself that I've been able to get there. What about you?
I love that. I love that, like finding pride in like your balance of like that heritage and also the work, and having that like that identity or that representation like show the work that you've done. That's really cool. I like that facet of the pride that you're finding. Yeah, I mean, pride has been an interesting journey for me. I started to figure out I was trans maybe 10 years ago, and I started to be like, something is something is something. I don't really even know what it is. But I didn't feel like I was allowed to use that term because I hadn't had this sort of like lifelong experience of from 4 years old. I always knew I was X whatever, a different gender. Because it wasn't conscious. It just sort of like started to click into place in my adult years. I was in my early 30s. And when I read a definition of what it is to be transgender somewhere, and I think it was in a book, and it was simply the idea of like crossing over, like trans is this like movement. And so it's like something that is just different from the way you were assigned at birth. Like it doesn't have to be some other end of a spectrum. It can just be like, oh, you're just not that thing.
Yeah.
Like that isn't a thing. Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
just was like, oh my gosh, I am allowed to do that? Like I can have that identity. And like from that moment, I just felt this like, oh my gosh, such resonance and felt so seen by that description, and being
Yeah.
allowed to take that on and like that sense of pride really built from there and just allowing myself to kind of own that.
Yeah.
And now, having taken testosterone and like got top surgery and like all these things to kind of make my body feel more like me.
Yeah.
Um, I like similar to you, I'm like very early in the conversation. I'm like, yeah, I'm trans, queer. Like, don't mistake me for anything else,
Yeah.
because there's so much pride in that, there's
Yeah.
so much pride in like kind of what you're talking about, like the work you put in. I'm like the journey I've been on. Like when people like see my scars, I'm like, yes, look at the life that I have lived. It's not this thing. It's this thing that has had this arc and this movement to it.
Yeah.
So I definitely find pride in that, and want people to know, pretty early on. And that's not every trans person's experience for various reasons. There's a lot of safety, in that. And I am very fortunate to have, be in a place in the Pacific Northwest and like be surrounded by people who are like, yeah, be you. And I know
Yeah.
that's not the case for everybody. So I feel very like fortunate to be able to show that pride in that way and live that way. And same with my queer identity. Like I didn't have a big coming out thing. I just had these slow moments of like, oh, I actually like kind of feel very flexible in who I like and how I relate to people. And um, I just found pride in like being in queer spaces where I'm like, this oh, that's what they're talking about. That's what pride is. I just felt so much like this big, like expansive thing in my chest whenever I'd be in these queer spaces. So it's been like a long developing process, and has not been simple or linear by any means at all.
I
Yeah.
relate to you so much in so much that you have said because I mean from the when you were describing like it not being perfectly labeled or perfectly like I started feeling this way when I was very young. That was also my experience. I think I had always had doubts, but for the longest time, I also had a boyfriend. So, like, I had my first boyfriend when I was 14 years old, and then I had like a very long-term relationship after long-term relationship after long-term relationship. So I never really gave it much thought until I was already an adult. And then I had this imposter syndrome that I was like, well, am I allowed to claim this new label because I'm not
Yeah.
even sure that I'm gonna stick with this permanently? Do I have to choose one? How much time do I have to like let time pass before I can be sure that this is my new identity? And it was such a stressful and fearful process until people were like, hey, you can change your mind. Hey, this is a spectrum. Hey, like, not the decision you make today doesn't have to be the decision that you make tomorrow. And it's a journey. Like that, I love the word journey because it
Mm.
really takes the pressure off already being at the destination and like being like, well, this is it. This is it.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And when you were talking about that, I was like, yes. And the pride of like, after you get through that initial bump of, or that initiation of it, where you're like, ooh, like, do I even belong here? Like, I remember my first pride, and I was so scared to like take up space
Mm.
because I wasn't like, I don't know, like ready. And then the difference of like as you start becoming part of the community and you get embraced because you really do get embraced by the community.
Yes.
And it's that like feeling in your chest of like even if you don't know them, you already have something in common with them that is so essential to you. And it's so easy to form friendships and I don't know, like it's been the best experience for me at least. And like you said, I'm very, very lucky and grateful that I get to live in a city where I don't have to be scared of it and where I have lots of people to connect with. But for me, coming out has been something that has added to my life.
Same in community, like you're saying, friends, and like immediately just like plugging in a new city that I go to or whatever, because there's like, yeah, there's just community there. And people are like, yes, welcome,
Yeah.
which I love. And it's interesting thinking about the like um that sense of pride developing over time, like as we're coming into more like, cohesion with ourselves, or kind of more just like being aligned and like who we are and how we're like presenting and who we're associating with. What I have also found in coming to my trans identity, coming to my queer identity, like understanding my neurodivergence, is that this experience can apply to so many things. So there's so many people who like maybe don't fit into some of these identities, but that have this sense of like something isn't right, like something isn't aligned. I don't know what it is, and maybe that's just like, hey, this job I've been doing for a long time this is not me. Like this is a
Yeah.
version of me that just like isn't who I am. And finding that alignment can look in all these different ways. And I remember that like once I started like untangling like gender and all of that, all of these other dominoes started falling where I was like, oh my gosh, the work I've been doing isn't right. Oh my gosh, the way I've been doing relationships isn't what I want. Oh gosh, the way I've been living isn't what I want. And I'm just like, it just kind of started to come apart in a way that I am so grateful for because now I'm looking at stuff much more intentionally because of that experience of like, deconstructing one thing, the rest, I'm like, well, I guess we got to look at all the parts of our life and see what actually fits. And like, do we feel, proud in the ways that we're showing up and proud in the ways that we are existing and living? Yeah. And so I think about that a lot, in a lot of the folks that I work with who will be like, something isn't right and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Something's just off and I don't know what it is. And a lot of the time it's just like not being super connected and aligned in who we are. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. That is for sure.
That's super interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, even like what you said about you start uncovering this one part of the puzzle and then all the other parts of the puzzle kind of start, changing
Mhm.
too to become your authentic self.
Mhm.
I don't know that I have done that work myself. I mean, I think I definitely have a job that I'm very proud of and I follow my dreams. I am an actor. I am an accent coach, which happened by coincidence, but it ended up becoming like a huge part of who I am and I love to be an accent coach and talk about it and I love my clients, but I don't know that I have taken the time to think about what else in my life was given to me instead of like coming from me.
Mhm.
I'm gonna take some time to think about that. What was one thing for you that was really hard to let go of that maybe you felt a lot of pride about or you did not feel proud of that you had to change?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, the the first thing that comes to mind is so when I started figuring this out, I was married. I presented very differently, and I was married to a man who I really, really cared for and loved, and we had been together for 8 years and had this whole like set of stories that about our future, and like the ways that I would interact with his family, or just like the things and kind of the things that felt like a given. And so there's just a lot of grief in like unwriting a lot of those and kind of realizing, oh, those were stories. They were one option, and maybe they would have been an option, but they weren't mine. They weren't the one that was for me. And so that was hard. That was a really hard process, and because I did feel like very attached to that story in a way, it just like wasn't for me.
Yeah,
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 that
yeah,
makes
yeah. How
sense.
about you? Have you had things like that come up where um, you've had to move away from something that didn't feel like it was for you?
Um, I think it's been the opposite for me. I think it's been more of a fighting for this new part of me that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny because when I came out, because of again the privilege that I have, I didn't really think that it would be a big deal for people, and for most it wasn't. But when it came to my family, it did like cause shock in a way that I wasn't expecting. And so I kind of had to move away from the idea of the life that I was going to have and also move away from some people because they weren't accepting of something that I felt so proud of and so happy about because I genuinely it was scary, but I was mostly just really happy. Um, so that was something that I had to let go of. Some people, some expectations for myself, or some dreams, maybe. Um, yeah, and that was hard. That was definitely hard at the time.
Yeah, beautiful. And as you say, it's kind of like it's a moving you're moving towards something, but you have to kind of like there's certain things that you have to shift in order to do that and to move away from in order to move towards something.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and they happen at the same time. Yeah, and not usually linear
No.
and not usually as expected.
No.
which is part of the fun, and can be hard.
What's one thing that you have gained that you're like, maybe it doesn't have to be like the best thing you've gained from this journey and your identity in general, like it doesn't have to be your queer pride, but like any type of pride, something that you've gained that you really value.
It's interesting in this like unraveling of the stories and the things that have been were fed in or that were that I cultivated for one reason or another. One thing that I've gained is just like I'm very silly. Like I'm getting back to my like 10-year-old self in a lot of ways. And like I'm 40 years old and I frequently am mistaken for someone in my late 20s, or people are like, man, you act like a child. I'm like, I know, it's more fun, it just is like climbing a tree or just like making a strange sound or just, letting out whatever that kind of like strange impulses that aren't hurting anybody, that are just like kind of like letting myself be.
Hmm.
Um, and so I feel like I've gained that, and like this process of deconstruction of these stories is like learning to trust myself more and learning to kind of like trust what comes up. So I think gaining that like reconnection with my little weirdo self has been a big gain in the process. A lot of that was covered up for a long time. So yeah.
I love that. I really
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
It's maybe a little unexpected, but it's been fun. It's been very fun. Yeah.
I think everyone needs to do that. I have this picture on my phone. Um, the lock screen is actually me when I was 12 years old because I find that to be my most authentic self is me when
Yeah.
I was 12 years old, and I'm constantly trying to get back to her.
Mm.
And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
So I think it's super special that you feel like you've gone closer to that.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like has been inviting that one that is 10-year-old kind of into my life now, and like showing them, what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Is there, just to kind of like finish it out, is there something that you would say to your 12-year-old self about your life now that you'd want her to know?
Ah, there's so much. I would say to not be so result driven
Mm.
and enjoy the journey. And like when I was little, I always had this idea of what my life would look like. And it's something I still struggle with. Like I was like, by 25, I'm gonna do this. By 27, by 30, by 35. And none of that has happened at all. And a lot has changed from what I thought it was going to be. So I would just tell her to experience, like live life and experience and
Mm.
be open to possibilities and experiences and to changing her mind. And she's gonna have a way better time than if she's trying to control everything.
Yeah,
What
that's
about you?
beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, I mean, kind of similar, like just, follow your curiosity, because that's been what has guided some of the most impactful experiences of my life, is just like following a yes, where I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but I'm gonna do it. And just like being open, and yeah, and really slowing down enough to check in with themselves to make sure that like something they're doing is a fit, you know,
Yeah.
and is what they really want. Yeah, yeah. And I know we have to wrap up now, and I really just appreciate, you being willing to delve in and talk a little bit about this pride and this subject that's so, present for this month, but all year, it's all the time. There isn't just one
Exactly.
month for pride, but this is the time we get to like really talk about it. So I
Yeah,
really
this is the time
appreciate
where we get to
it.
be like, hey, it's our
Wave the flags,
turn.
Yeah,
No,
so I
this
really
was such a
appreciate
great
that.
conversation. Thank you for sharing with me everything that you did and giving me the space to share too. And
Yeah.
for everyone out there that is watching, I hope you have a wonderful Pride Month and, like Max said, a wonderful just rest of your year of being proud of who you are and keep working towards finding your most authentic self.
Yes, I love that in whatever way that looks to you. Thanks so much.
See you guys.